Hey folks, I'm up here on the Nicolet National Forest, public land in northern Wisconsin, and today I'm going to be putting out some trail cameras as well as some mock scrapes. So I have the sticks already cut for my mock scrapes. So if you folks want, follow along, and I'm going to talk about my strategies and essentially how I deal with wolves here up in wolf country. All right, okay, let's get going. Are you tired? Are you tired, little girl? We're about 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles back off the road. And what makes this spot, I think, so good is that obviously nobody comes back here. But once again, open hardwoods behind me. And then if you look behind me here, it thickens up with the hemlock and the spruce. It's not super thick, but it's enough to create this edge. And it's a faint edge. It's not a real, if you look behind me too, you can see that it's not a real distinct edge. Hemlock, maple. And what I like about that is it's not eye-catching to people, okay? And the other thing is you can't see it on an aerial map. The aerial map, it all looks the same, so that's kind of a neat feature from that component. But what I know from hunting here in the past, that these deer, what they do is essentially about another 1/4 mile back, that is where their bedding area, and it's along a really thick creek bottom. And then what they do is they catch this little hemlock, spruce, if you want to call it island or strip. It's not real long. And then they take that all the way and they follow this edge, which they'll then go across to a logging road. And then on the backside of that logging road is a cutover. Then they take that cutover edge all the way down, and they'll take that literally all the way another 1/2 mile or so. And across the road are some cottages that I don't know if they bait or they might have bird feeders or just lawn that they feed off of. But that's a little bit different up here in the big woods. These deer are willing to travel a lot further than they are, let's say, in ag country, okay, for their feed. Now, the key component, though, is when you're dealing with wolves, one of two things that I've noticed up here that deer find their security component in. And the first component I'm going to talk about right now is water. And that's why they go into that creek bottom way in the back here. Because from there to essentially where that food source is, there is no water. Literally, it's pretty dry right now up here in northern Wisconsin. And there's literally no water pockets. But back in that creek bottom, they can get way back on those little islands back in there where it's super thick. And it literally, the wolves obviously won't go in that deeper water. And they can hear them coming. And then they set up appropriately so they can smell them coming as well, right? So this is their little trail component that they take to get from that creek bottom up to here. I can put a mock scrape here, put my camera here, see if there's any sign of any big bucks coming through here. And then if there is, then I can go appropriately. I can either go down to that creek bottom and hunt that bottom, which is more than likely what I would do. Or if they're showing themselves up even in daytime, I can hunt somewhere along this edge, even close to the camera, if that's the case. So right now, let's get that mock scrape set up. All right, folks, so if you look off to my right here, we have open hardwoods, essentially maples, and then it slowly transitions into an edge. There's an edge right here, and now we have hemlocks and spruce over on this side, okay? These deer love to travel this particular edge all the way back up to behind me here. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this hemlock and spruce thicket here, which ain't very big. It's actually not very wide, but it creates the point at the end. And then I'm gonna get to that back point, and that's where I'm going to put my mock scrape and my trail camera. All right, folks, so the mock scrape has been set. So I have the mock scrape right here. I have the trail camera actually set up on the back side right now. And real quick, I want to talk about my mock scrape here. If you are interested in how I do my mock scrapes, I have a video out there called Perfecting the Mock Scrape. I'll link that down below. Technically, with this particular scrape, though, what I usually like is I like a straight branch, and then I usually like one that comes off, kind of a kicker branch that I have right here. So you can see this is a kicker branch. Now, I've been experimenting with mock scrapes for quite a few years already, and I'm trying something different today. Now, usually I normally use those vines, 3/4 inch to an inch vine. Came up north here, and I did not have any vines, and I forgot to cut some. So what I did is I have an apple tree on a neighbor's property, so I asked if I could utilize a branch, and I cut some, technically vines, if you want to call it, or sticks, using apple branches. So we're going to see how that's going to work, and it should work just fine. Matter of fact, maybe that little apple smell might even bring them in a little bit more. They might even be a little more curious to it. Working up a little sweat here, but Tasco trail camera is set. I like these cheapo Tascos for big woods public land. You know, they're cheap. If they get stolen, so what? But I'm back a little over 1.25 miles here, and kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so it should be fine there. All right, so right there is the trail camera. And if you look over there, actually the sun's hitting it, and I have the mock scrape right there, and that's the mock scrape. We're probably maybe just a little under 10 yards from that. Now, one of the things I just want to quick mention is where I have it, I have a little opening right here. There's like a little, looks like there could be a little path, and then we have this big fall down here. So what this essentially does is it kind of funnels them as they come down this edge. If they want to stay within these hemlocks and not go out into the maples, it kind of funnels them to come actually right through here. Technically don't have a choice. And then on the back side, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's another fallen down tree over there, and that acts as a natural barrier too. So in some ways, this little spot works out perfect. As you can tell, I got the hemlocks and the spruce right up here. Actually, right here, the hemlock that the tree is on, actually a spruce. And then, yeah, so this little spot's perfect. We got some fall downs and stuff down here. Makes it a little bit more seclusion cover than the open hardwood maples, and we're on the edge. The other thing I want to mention too is I am on the west side of this spruce hemlock component, and you always want to be on the downwind side, because when deer travel, when they come through here, they want to be on the downwind side because they can see the maples. They don't need to smell that, but where they can't see, okay, where it's a little thicker here, they like to always be on that downwind side and then utilize scent to their advantage. So that's another good reason why I have the mock scrape along with the camera right here. And to reiterate, they're coming from the bedding, which is about 1/4 mile that way, coming up here, catching this edge of the hemlock spruce. They're gonna head up over the top. There's a little bit of a hill. There is another cutover up on top. They follow the edge of that cutover, go across a road, and then they hit, I believe it's some people that might be either baiting or bird feeders. I don't want to say that they're baiting. I don't know. But for whatever reason, though, they are crossing that road over there. So that's the reason why everything is set up, for the rhyme and reason that I have it here. And we'll come back here in 2 months. Matter of fact, if you want to subscribe, I will be showing you folks what is on this particular camera and then on to my next setup. So one more reason to hit that subscribe button. All right, let's go on to the second spot. So the next spot that I like up here in northern Wisconsin, are essentially where wolves are predominant, are cottages, okay? So in a lot of cases, these lakefront properties usually have cottages along them. And what ends up happening is the does tend to bed about 100 to 200 yards off, give or take, off these cottages. And once again, whether they bait illegally up here or whether they have bird feeders, okay, or however they do it, a lot of these deer will come into these yards, feed behind the cottages, and then go back, especially the doe families. Also, bigger bucks will do that too if they feel more confident going into somebody else's yard, usually late at night. So what I end up doing up here is I scout these areas out wherever there's public land right on the back side of these cottages. And then what I like to do is set up in between the doe bedding areas, okay? And then usually at the end of the lake is usually a corner where there is a marshy, swampy area. And in some cases, that's where your big bucks like to bed. So what happens is the big bucks come out, especially when they're scent checking in fall for does. They're going to come down that route just behind those cottages, seeing which does are maybe coming into heat, coming into those feeders, and then going back to their bedding areas. And then what I like to do is just set up somewhere in between. Now, in wolf country here, wolves, for the most part, are much more afraid of humans than humans think they are, okay? So when you get near these cottages or people-populated areas, wolves tend not to go into those areas. And deer know this, and deer feel much safer. And that's why a lot of these deer up here in northern Wisconsin, I know the mindset is to get back in the woods way far back, which I did earlier, okay? But once again, we had that water, that big, heavy, wet swamp that could get out of the way for the wolves here. And the same thing here. We have a wet swamp, but in this case, we also have the cottages close by, and then the does can bed right behind the cottages, get their feed. And the wolves, for the most part, there's always an exception to the rule, but for the most part, they tend to stay away from cottages, all right? So right now, I'm gonna head in. I got a little spot picked out on my Onyx map, and I'm going to see what I can find. And if everything goes the way it looks on the map, we should have a good spot here, all right? I'm actually on the edge of the lake right now. There's Lily doing a little swimming, but we're gonna have to go from swimming into the woods right now. So, all right, why don't you follow along? All right, folks, so right here I have a deer trail coming through right here, okay? That deer trail is actually going right through here, and it's heading into that little opening over there. And then it crosses back into another creek bottom, which is on the back side. Now, which is key here though is all the cottages are straight back that way. And I actually have a hill up here. So I am on the leeward side of this hill, at the bottom base of this hill. And then over here, if you can see right through there, that's the lake. Okay, so I have a natural funnel as well. So I have the funnel of the lake. I'm on the leeward side of the hill. I have the main trail right here. And then once again, all of those cottages are straight back. And these deer are going to those cottages to feed, I'm assuming. And then they're going back to their bedding area, which is down at that opening. They go across that opening, which then is a creek bottom, a really thick creek bottom. All right, folks, so one little thing about these mock scrapes here is, now what I did is I took this tree, I bent it over. I'm leaving these leaves actually down here. They'll add to it. There's the licking branch right in there. Once again, I used that apple branch, and that's new for me this year. So we're gonna see how that works out. And I think that should work out really well. And then obviously here is the scrape down here. One thing I just want you guys to be aware of, though, when you make your mock scrapes, I made this mistake in the past, is that I usually make my mock scrapes in summer. This one shouldn't be that big of a deal, but when these leaves come off, okay, when these leaves come off, that takes the weight off the branch. And what will end up happening is if you have a really big, heavy branch that's got tons of leaves on it, when those leaves come off and fall, the mock scrape, the branch actually lightens up, and that mock scrape will actually rise upwards. And I've already had it where that licking branch is like way too high. You always want that licking branch at about belly button level, and that's where that's at right now, okay? Might be kind of hard to tell deception-wise with the camera, but I always want that at belly button level so the does and fawns can get their scent glands on it as well. But that's just one little tip for you folks making your mock scrapes, especially in summer. Beware of the leaves on there, because once they fall off, that's actually more weight than you think it is, and then the branches will come back up, especially if you did like I did, where you just kind of take a tree here and it's kind of bent over a little bit. All right, so this one is all said and done mock scrape wise. I just got to get the camera set up, and then we'll be done. All right, folks, got the old trail camera adjuster 5000 in here. That's just pointed it down a little bit, and then we got the mock scrape right there. So folks, the two main components I look for is those bedding areas, whether they're creek bottoms or big tamarack swamps or anything that has water, and it creates those little islands that bucks can live on, all right? And that just doesn't allow for the wolves to get at them on those islands. And then the other component is the human presence, because wherever there's humans, all right, there's usually a little bit of a food source, whether it be illegal baiting, bird feeders. It could be some type of grasses that maybe they have in their backyard, or maybe they even have a food plot back there, right? The other component that you don't want to overlook either is city limits, okay? So there's so many little cities or little towns, if you want to call it, up here in the Northwoods that have public land that surround them. Don't be afraid to get out and scout and look around those city limit areas, because once again, those deer are coming in for those food sources. And with that human presence, wherever it's at, cottages, city limits, wolves tend to stay away, and deer know that. And they push just far enough that they're not into the humans too much, okay, the deer, all right? But they know that the wolves won't come in, because wolves, they're more afraid of us than we are of them, actually, believe it or not. And the other thing, folks, I'm going to share more of my hunting videos, more of my trail camera pictures. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more real time this year, so that way you can actually live along the hunt with me and see my strategies, my e-scouting, the whole 9 yards of how I go about hunting these big woods public land, and also private land. I do have some private land spots that I bow hunt as well. So once again, hit that subscribe button if you want to follow along this year, right? Until next time, Clint and Lily from Oak and Iron Outdoors.